Good afternoon, everyone. Welcome to the special council meeting. Moved by Councillor Perrier, seconded by Councillor Rigelhoff. Be it resolved that the Township of Greater Madawaska Council calls to order the December 8th, 2021 special council meeting at 1:01 p.m. All in favor? Carried. Moved by Councillor Perrier, seconded by Councillor Rigelhoff. Be it resolved that the agenda of the council meeting of December 8, 2021 be approved as presented. All in favor? Carried. Any declaration of pecuniary interest? Seeing none. And I'll ask Luke if you could introduce our first presenters.
Yep, thank you, Your Worship. Today we're lucky to have Kent Randall with us, from Principal with EcoView Consulting out of the Peterborough area. Earlier this year, as Council recalls, we were successful in being awarded a provincial modernization grant. And with that awarding of that grant, the Township issued an RFP for planning and development modernization services. And through that RFP, we were lucky enough to get a submission from EcoView Consultants, who put together a nice package for us, which includes that Mr. Randall will speak to in some greater detail, but a very nice offering of an updated zoning bylaw, which we greatly needed, some development standards to add some predictability for the developers coming into this municipality. And they also included a nice partnership with a company called SHCG, which is a economic development company that specializes in rural municipalities, and their component of the project is underway to look at our growth needs as our community expands and grows and looks towards the future. So without anything more, I can turn it over to Mr. Randall.
Thanks, Luke. Hello, everyone. Your Worship and Council and staff. My name is Kent Randall. As Luke pointed out, I'm the principal planner at EcoView Consulting, and we're assisting the township with this project, this exciting and comprehensive project. And if you just give me 1 second, I will share my screen, and everyone should be able to see that now. So I just have a short presentation today. I'm just going to briefly go over what it is exactly that we're doing, where we're at in the process, and what to expect as we move along. So this project is comprised of 3 components, and I'll get to each of those. But really, they all kind of go hand in hand, as we'll get into. One leads to the next. It's really an exercise in modernizing and updating your zoning bylaw, first of all, but also development standards and development standards for future development, and readying the township for growth, and when that growth comes, and where that growth is going to occur. So they all kind of go hand in hand, as we'll get into. Just briefly, EcoView, as Luke said, we're based out of Peterborough. We have a great project team working on this. Internally, we have Andrew, Jess, and Milo, who are working primarily with me on the zoning bylaw and the development standards. Adrian Harp from SHCG is handling the growth readiness for the most part, and her and her team are handling that, and that is the first component, as we'll get to. Just briefly, our firm, which has been around since 2006, specializes. We actually started out specializing specifically in rural and small municipal development. We currently have a number of municipal clients of size that's relatively the same size as Greater Madawaska throughout central and eastern Ontario. So we are aware of the issues and opportunities within these areas, and particularly in rural Ontario. So the three projects that are, I'll refer to them each as individual projects. It's really kind of, as I said, encompassed in this sort of one overall project, but there's three separate projects that are moving forward. And we have the Growth Readiness Action Plan, which is the first one. The second one being the development standards. And then all of that leads to the update of the comprehensive zoning bylaw. So as we'll get to, it's a document that is fairly old, and this is something that happens quite often with a lot of municipalities. It's just something that needs to be done at some point, obviously to catch up with things that have occurred over the last, in this case, 18 years. So the Growth Readiness Action Plan, and this is being handled primarily by SHCG and their team, and this is this process, or this project is the culmination is a plan or an action plan that provides measurable goals and objectives for growth. What I've called it in the past has been a strategic plan for growth. So it's not necessarily a policy document or a document that implements anything directly like a zoning bylaw, but it is something that the township would look to in terms of where they want to see growth occur, the type of growth that they want to see occur in the township, and what sort of recommendations there would be for controlling and managing that growth. So what's occurring right now is that community outreach or outreach to stakeholders. There's been surveys that have been provided to stakeholders and to the community that have been returned. There's been a great response from stakeholders and from the community regarding the Growth Readiness Action Plan. We're expecting this to be finished in January or February of 2022. And so this is the timeline for this project. At this point, we are still gathering that information from stakeholders and the survey returns that we've had. Really, we're kind of coming to the end of that. So now it's a matter of taking that data and interpreting it and articulating it in some sort of draft plan that will be ready for public and council's consumption in the new year. The next project is the development standards. So what this is a guide or a guideline for prospective developers, builders, and other stakeholders like that are coming to the township or that are in the township. They're looking to build or develop land. What we're looking to do is provide a set of guidelines for those prospective developers and prospective development, so that it's consistent across the board for whether you're building just a single detached home or you're developing a plan of subdivision. There's a set of standards for you to follow, so that both the developer and staff and circulated agencies are all on the same page. Some examples for what typical development standards would be include site plan guidelines for site plan, like landscaping and hardscaping, and what the municipality wants to see in a site plan submission. Design standards for roads and plans of subdivision, and that's just so that there is something that developers can look to and that staff can look to, so that there's no confusion when and there's no confusion into the future, of course, if staff changes or there's new developers coming in and that aren't aware of how things work within the township. So this also includes outreach to stakeholders. So we're looking to those,
Here's just a visual representation of some of the things. These are people who have come to the library, some of the events that we've been at, As well, we did also start our speakers program with an outdoor speaker where we learned about flora and mushrooms in the area and Barrett shoot. Okay. So libraries are valuable community assets. The Ontario government has stated that literacy brings economic and mental health benefits as well as social benefits to communities. In addition, what libraries will bring is community support. We are staffed by personnel who love the community. We have local librarians. We have an environment that's safe and inclusive. We want it to be a meeting place for new residents. And we do find that when new residents come in and they get a membership, that they ask an awful lot of questions about, you know, what's around, where's the best place to eat, what type of services are here, what type of recreation is available. So we also see ourselves as an ambassador for new residents to understand what else is in their community. As well, we ask our patrons to tell us what they like. So we are noticing what types of reading materials they're going for, what type of services they like, and we want our library to reflect their community interests. As well, there's tangible benefits, and we are looking to monitor more closely the online services and the user support so that we can pull more statistics and be more focused on the community. Okay, in 2022, our focus is creating our library to be a place to be. We are increasing our outreach through our library services, programs, and our speaker sessions. When I say that we're expanding the knowledge base of our staff, it isn't just making sure that people are trained. We're also making sure that they understand what's going on in the community. So we like to be up and understanding what events are going on, where the best place to eat is, you know, what other local businesses are around. So we do want to be that hub. We're also looking at our systems and improving the performance and ease of use. We will be delivering some user sessions so that people understand how to get to the services and the different services that are there. And we hope to take our partners and volunteer community and expand it quite a bit. We recognize that in this community, we have a vast number of extremely skilled people and a lot of really good interest groups that may want to expand and bring their knowledge to the rest of the community. We're inviting new ideas wherever we can. Okay, and again, continuing to grow the library as a community asset, just some of the adult programs that we have up and running right now. And those, we will be expanding on that in 2022. We are working very closely with the school as well, St. Joseph's, and we're actually really enjoying that. It's a super relationship. Okay, so getting to the numbers, when we look at the budget, I first wanted to talk about our numbers from an expense perspective. So when we look at our numbers, we did build our staffing, so our wage and benefits are built from the bottom up. We also work very closely with the township to make sure that our numbers and our figures are correct and that we're not underestimating or that we are using the right numbers when we're looking at things like benefits, which are percentages of the wages. As well, we did take a long time going through our general ledger, looking at where we have spent money in the past and really looking to see where we could trim things up and to look to see if there's anything that could be culled. So we don't want to have anything in our operations budget that isn't being used. So we want to maximize the benefit, and we want to also make sure that we're watching costs at all times. We also did a review of all the subscriptions and services that are available through the Ontario Library Service and other services to make sure that we are hitting on the community's interests and to check it against the things that the community has asked us for. Okay, on the revenue side, This is where we get additional money to offset the ask of the 128,000. So within our revenues, we do receive 2 grants from the province, and the total of those 2 grants is 13,470 going into 2022, the largest of which goes directly against salary, which is 11,817. We're looking as well at donations that come in from our patrons, and we've set a target for fundraising for a minimum of $6,000, and we've put that minimum number in there. We've also worked with the consultants from Watson and with the township to look if there's an opportunity to use some of the lot development fees for some of the materials within the library that are aging. So our total revenues budgeted going into 2022 would be 21,670. We are making a commitment to fiscal responsibility. We like to maintain a 2% or lower ask of the township and of our residents. So with our revenue and expenses, our township portion is $106,888, which is around the 2% ask. I think it's probably just slightly less. Okay. We've got this in order for us to be successful and to bring in the revenues that we would like to bring in, and hopefully more revenues, which would offset that cost even more. We have been looking where we can acquire discounts and surplus items. You may or may not have noticed in the picture that I showed that we have a new circulation desk, and that was, we found that as a surplus item from the Cornwall Library, and that was put in for free and shipped for free and free. So our whole circulation desk was not a cost that we had to incur this year. As well, as I indicated, we have set a minimum target for fundraising. We are looking at the community to make sure that we cull what is not useful and that we retain all the popular service and topics and expand on that. As well, I did mention that the provincial government is providing 2 grants to libraries specifically. This year, they've also taken all of the grant money that you would normally apply for under different categories, and they've put it under re-emerging businesses. And I've taken a look at the qualifications, and I do believe that we may qualify for a grant. And that is something that we'd like to partner with the township to take advantage of, to look at, you know, how we come out of the pandemic as a re-emerging, especially our library, to see if there's an opportunity for us to be able to expand services and look to the future. And again, volunteers are going to be most important to us to help us provide additional services and to also enrich our program delivery with their knowledge and skill sets. Okay, so in a nutshell, that's it. I know that you'll be going on to further budget deliberations, and the library will be part of that as well. Thank you.
Okay, thank you, Patty, for the presentation. While you're still with us, I'll open it up to council if there's any questions of Patty. Seeing none, I do have one. On the
Sure.
slide, commitment to fiscal responsibility.
Yes.
I don't fully understand that. I wonder if, so we're saying a 2% ask. What is that of operating revenues, or? Yes,
of the operating revenues. And I understand from the township treasurer that we are in line with the other recreation costs within the township.
Okay, so if I understand it correctly, then if our operating revenues is $5 million, you'd be looking for 100,000 as an expense for the library. Is that, would that be it, Renee?
I believe what Patty is saying is that right now the library represents a 2%. Is that what you're saying in that slide?
Yes.
Yeah, so the overall represents a 2% of the overall budget.
Including capital?
No, it goes lower. It goes to 1%, including capital.
Okay,
So, yes.
of the operating.
Yes, that's right.
Okay, thank you
Okay.
very much. Okay, then if there's nothing further, thank you, Patty, and we'll move on to the rest of, let me see where we are.
Okay, thank you very much.
Okay, thank you.
Thanks, Patty.
And the next item is bylaw 65-2021, and I'll read the resolution. Moved by Councillor Perrier, seconded by Councillor Rigelhoff, that council approves bylaw 65-2021 to allow construction to occur 24 hours per day, 7 days per week, from December 13th to December 31st at the Calabogie Generating Station. Questions of council? Councillor Rigelhoff.
Thanks, Mr. Mayor. I know it's inclusive, those dates, but really on Christmas Eve, Christmas Day, or they're going to be doing that as well? Did we get that kind of clarification from them that, I mean, that they're not taking any holidays or having a shutdown or anything?
Luke?
Oh, yeah, sorry, I didn't want to hop in there, but yeah, if I could speak to, I'm not exactly sure, but so far, this is the second time that OPG has put in this request. And so the first time staff gave notice, we did a select mail out to some abutting property owners, and there was no complaints or concerns from people. I think the OPG construction site is set back a fair bit, and their project is significant. And with their associated timelines as well. So I don't know today if they're going to operate on Christmas Day. I would feel like that's unlikely, for example, but so far they've been a good neighbor and a good part of the community. So even if they were, and I can confirm this for you as well, Councillor Rigelhoff, after the meeting, but we have not received complaints about their operation.
No, that's true. I concur. We have not received any either. Just trying to be forewarned, but thank you.
Yeah, I will follow up and get some information for you. Yeah.
Thank you. Anything further? Seeing none, all in favor? And that is passed. And Finance and Admin, draft 2022 budget tabling presentation. Renee.
Yes, thank you. I'm just going to share my screen. Okay. So the intent of this presentation is to provide council with an overview of the approach taken in completing the 2022 budget. It'll discuss budget impacts, opportunities, and pressures. As budget deliberations are set for January, today I'll be providing an overview of the package provided, allowing you time to review prior to deliberations. So the approach staff took in drafting the 2022 budget includes a line-by-line review and trend analysis. We reviewed every account compared to the current budget. For accounts that demonstrate an increase or decrease, we reviewed trending or prior years to confirm if the ups and down trends are consistent and the budget should be revised accordingly. The taxation levy increase is based on the council's approved asset management plan, and capital assets are also based on stipulated projects in the asset management plan. Capital needs can be health and safety related, funding based, or requirements for business continuity. The operating budget is 5.7 million, and the capital budget is 6.3 million for a total of $12 million in investment. This graph provides greater detail on the funding sources of the total budget. So this is operating and capital. So for 2022, 43% of the budget is funded through federal and provincial grants, 37% through taxation, and And reserve and reserve funds, fund 8%, debentures 9%, and other funding sources is 3%, which includes user fees and charges and funds raised through agreements with the neighboring municipalities.
Excuse me a second, Renee, if there's questions as we go through on a particular slide,
Yeah.
would you like to take them when we're on the slide?
We could if you'd like. What's the preference?
On this slide, I guess I would just like to comment, and I'll open it up to council will ask questions, but the grant portion, or federal and provincial grants at 43%, there's been a lot of budgets.
Excuse me, can you turn your speaker on, Mr. Mayor?
I'm sorry.
Okay.
So I'm commenting on the federal and provincial grants at 43%. That is very astonishing. I don't think I've seen many budgets where 43% of it has been paid by grants. So kudos to staff on being able to get these grants. That would be a huge tax increase if we were to try to do this on taxpayer dollars. It'd be an extra $4 million at least, maybe $4.5 million. So that's very impressive to see that number there. Thank you.
Yeah, so this slide includes operating and capital. So the federal and provincial grant portion is a big portion is Ferguson Lake Road. And Ferguson Lake Road, actually, the total project equates to taxation revenue, full taxation PIL revenue that we receive for the township annually. So it's interesting to compare it to how much we actually receive annually. It almost equates the same. Yes,
well, and still, even with Ferguson Lake, that road certainly is in very tough shape, and it is a road that we would have had to have done with a debenture over many years. So.
Yeah, actually, it's one of the bigger roads that are being considered in development charges because of its implications with the growth here. Yeah. So it's required to be replaced.
Thank you.
Okay.
And before Renee moves, because we're sharing the screen, if any councillor has a question, because I won't be able to see you, maybe you can just interrupt, okay? Thank you.
Okay. So this is the breakdown of operating and capital expenses per department. So I'm not going to go into great detail into here. You could see Public Works works out to being over half of the budget. This is mainly due to, our Public Works department's a bigger piece of our operation for services and roads. And then this Public Works, a big portion of it correlates with the revenues coming in for funding. So some highlights from the operating for 2022 include the pay equity review and new organization structure, both completed and approved in 2021. The wages include a cost of living adjustment of 1.75%. And then there's extraordinary items, which are a bit more substantial for this budget, but this is due to the use of modernization funding and COVID funding. So and the election. So there's an in and out funded through revenue. So the operating budget is 77% funded through taxation revenues, whereas grant funding accounts for 15%, other revenues 7%, and then reserve withdrawals just 1%. So this goes more into detail on the operating revenues. So this table provides revenue sources by department. I'm just going to highlight a few more substantial changes. So the first line includes the levy increase of 4%. As mentioned earlier, this is a base when developing the budgets. It follows the asset management plan approved levy increase. So this is an increase which would include a component of tax rate increase and growth. We are receiving an increase of $17,100 on Ontario Municipal Partnership funding. This is due to a slight increase in households. We have increases in taxation adjustments, administration, environmental, facilities, and libraries, which are mostly due to the adjustment to the budget to better reflect actual revenues. So they're not necessarily bringing in more new revenues, but we're just more bringing our budget closer to actuals. In the Planning and Development Department, we are experiencing increase in revenues due to the increase in building and development. So the budget has been increased, but when you get into your budget binder, you'll see it's compared to actuals, and actuals are a bit higher than what's budgeted. This is because we want to remain conservative when budgeting for revenue increases. And then again, extraordinary items is an offset of or it will be offset with the expenses already accounted for, so they'll both be the 245. So the levy increase of 4% is made up of 31% of current value assessment growth, and therefore the increase to the tax rate to residents is 2.69%. So it's pretty much saying right now we have a growth of 1.31%, which I think is slightly higher than what we normally have, which is usually about 1%. So the regular resident would have an increase based on the budget presented today of 2.69%. The impact of the 2.69% to the residential homeowner is approximately $11.07 per 100,000 of property assessment, just to provide you a bit more of an understanding of the impacts. This is only also the municipal tax rate increase or impact. So county and education is not included in this. Moving on to expenses. This graph demonstrates the operating expenses by department. Again, I'm going to skip over to the next slide because it just provides a bit more of a detail versus graph. The increase in general government is mostly due to the increase in software fees due to modernization of data systems. For example, the asset management plan software, new financial software, and filing system. There'll also be an increase in cyber insurance, which protects our data for the township. There's a decrease in environmental, and it's due to the purchase of the new tandem, which lowers the maintenance requirements for the vehicle. There's increases in facilities are attributed to pay equity, insurance increases, and building maintenance needs. Recreational services is increased in 2022 for planned additional Canada Day celebrations, should COVID restrictions allow for this. The library increase is mostly attributed to the impact of pay equity and increases of the lease space. There's been a reallocation also for website and audit fees in this budget, so you'll see that it's reflected on this side, it used to be in the administrative side. Planning and development includes the additional staffing required to accommodate the departmental needs and bylaw enforcement contracted services. Some of these are slightly offset by revenues, or a bit. And then, as mentioned earlier, we're back to this extraordinary items that are being funded through grant funding. And then when you hit the capital debt payments, it includes the increase for a recommended 2022 debenture. So the increase is based off the debentures for capital that will be included in the budget document. So overall, the capital budget for 2022 includes an investment of $5.3 million into our roads, the purchase of equipment and facility designs, purchase of bins in an environmental, and the purchase of equipment for the fire department. These next few slides just provide a bit of a summary of some of the works that will be completed or drafted or to be approved for completion in 2022. The big one is Ferguson Lake Road, some extensions of Ferguson Lake Road. There's some resurfacing for Flat Road and Mountain St. Patrick. And then there's another slew of roads that would have some work completed on them. On this side, I just want to highlight the equipment. The tandem plow truck is actually pre-approved in 2021. So this has already been ordered and is expected to be expensed in 2022. There is a dump truck used here that's intended for use when through the construction of roads. So it's an extra truck that would allow us to do road construction and not use our new vehicles or our new trucks and cause damage. Yes, and then there's some environmental projects here that I listed, and then the hydraulic extrication equipment. That's 2 extrication equipments for both fire departments. So the funding sources for the projects outlined are as depicted in this graph. 69% of the projects are grant funded, which accounts for 4.34 million of the funding for capital projects for 2022. There is a withdrawal of reserve and reserve funds of 15%, which is about 920,000. This is mostly coming out of, there's a piece of development charges and then our general reserve. And then of course a debenture for just over $1 million. So I just want to take a minute just to discuss the budget binder that you've received. So you have the first tab will have a few summary pages for the budget that I've kind of discussed here. Tabs 2 to 12 will provide some detail by department of the operating side. You'll have tab 13, which has your capital projects. And then the reserve fund schedule and debenture schedule are on tab 14 and 15. These are the next steps for the budget process. So up until January 7th, I will be accepting clarification questions from council. The questions and responses to the questions will be provided to all of council, so then all council sees or provide the same information. At the January 17th regular council meeting, the 2022 budget is set for deliberations, and that is set for a tentative budget approval date. And then the township tax rates will be set in May once the county has set their tax rates. So this completes my presentation. I'm ready to answer any questions regarding the process and documents provided.
Thank you, Renee. Very comprehensive presentation. I'll open it up to council. Councillor Frost.
Yes, through Mr. Mayor to Renee, the PILs that would payment in lieu of taxes, with Ontario Hydro and that, do we review those on a regular basis? To know how much they would be giving us, or to ask them for more? I don't know. You know.
So it is reviewed. So they do let us know, but it has been the same amount since 2002. It has not changed. We have made delegations in the past to request additional funding or to review an alternative funding formula. We've been unsuccessful to date, but that does not mean that it's not something that we could reconsider in approaching various ministries to give reconsideration to.
Yes, please.
Sorry. It seems like it's kind of one-sided. They tell you, no, we're not going to look at the budgeting formula. It's going to stay the same, but everybody else's costs keep going up.
Yes, so just to clarify for the other members of council, Councillor Frost was inquiring if we review the payment in lieu of taxes that we receive for the power dams on an annual basis, and we do, but unfortunately we haven't been successful in persuading various levels of government to consider or to reassess or to reconsider. And I agree that, you know, every other taxpayer's taxes have increased since 2002 and theirs have not. We can definitely look at developing and bringing the old presentations made and updating them and circulating them once again. But beyond that, there's unfortunately not much that we can do.
Thank you.
And just for council's information. I believe we did presentations 3 years in a row to ministers on this topic. And although they hear you, that's as far as it ever goes. We have had discussions with our MPP about it as well. I recently completed a survey with OPG, and to see how the community felt about how they are they a good neighbor, and so on. So my personal thoughts on it were very positive as a neighbor and a business within our community, with the exception that they're not paying their fair share of taxes. And so the person that I was interviewed by said that he would take that back. Previous councils as well as had many delegations on this, but they're just not open to it at all. So if somebody has some thoughts on how we could do it better, I think we had some pretty convincing presentations that Allison and I did, but it was to no avail. So it's certainly open if any of council has some thoughts. Perhaps they could review the last presentation, and maybe there is a better way to do it, but we certainly were unsuccessful. Thank you.
And sorry, further to that, in 2016, we did actually lobby the government as they were attempting to reduce the amount of payment that we receive for payment in lieu by a third. So we were successful in maintaining the existing funding we have, but we weren't successful in having them review the method in which they calculate their calculation. We don't know their calculation on how they arrive at that amount. There's no cost of living increase. So we can definitely have the presentations that were made previously. I can circulate them to you if you would like. But like Mayor Hunt has suggested, we have been unsuccessful. So we're open to ideas.
Not off the top of my head, but it's good information to think about. Is it safe to assume, Allison, that all Crown corporations and divisions of the government at arm's length are not subject to the municipal tax rates?
It depends. So we do have, it depends, there's a number of variables. If Crown land is leased, then it is subject to municipal tax rates. It really varies depending on the situation.
Mm-hmm. I can imagine it's very complex.
Okay, anything further? Any further questions of Renee on the budget process?
I'd just like
Perrier.
to thank her. Oh, sorry, Mr. Mayor. Yeah, great presentation, I have to say.
I want to echo Councillor Rigglehoff's comments. It looks good, very comprehensive. Bravo.
Okay, so what you want us to do is to go back and review it in detail and come back to you with any concerns we have prior to that January meeting. Is that correct?
Yeah, sometimes it's easy to answer some questions and clarification that I may not be so clear because I'm so deep into this sometimes. So yes, and then I'll be circulating the answers to everybody or responses to these questions. And then I will be also circulating my notes, my speaking notes for today, just so, because I do go into a bit more detail on certain impacts, and it will help you with the information you're providing.
Thank you. Okay, we'll move to bylaws. Moved by Councillor Perrier, seconded by Councillor Rigglehoff. Be it resolved that the following bylaw, 65-2021 noise bylaw exemption, be deemed read a second and final time and passed by council. And furthermore, that 66-2021 confirmatory be read a first, second, and final time and passed by council at the special council meeting held December 8, 2021. All in favor? Carried. Moved by Councillor Perrier, seconded by Councillor Frost, that the special council meeting of December 8, 2021 be adjourned at 1:55 p.m. All in favor? And that's carried. Thank you, council.